Class 2, we're going to focus on the sumo squat and deadlift. So, if you've never done it before, we will be doing it in our pre-assessment. We have to focus with our PNF technique in these classes. So remember, when I say push your foot into the floor, I want you to activate through your muscles and really push down into the floor, because this is going to get a really good reaction through the muscles and open them up even deeper. And you can take it at your own pace. You can go as deep as you want, really push, or if you're feeling like you're a bit too tight today, just start easing into it. Then all we need for the class is a band, a mat, and a pillow, and we won't be needing the chair, but we'll need the pole. Go get your things, and I'll see you now. We're going to start with our pre-assessment. So we're going to start with the sumo squat, just starting with the setup. So taking the pole behind your back and making sure your shoulders are squeezed nice and tight. Your feet are underneath your hips. And then I want you to take a step out with the right leg so that it's just outside of your hip width. And then you're going to point your toes out to the side. Make sure your heels are in the same line and your angle of your foot is in the same angle. So don't have one foot turning out too much. Make sure both feet are turning out at a good angle. Now from this position, you're going to tilt the tailbone back. So you're just going to tilt the tailbone back and then drop directly down. So you're not moving your chest forward, you're keeping your chest lifted. And you go to the point where your bum and your knees are on the same level. Keep pushing the knees out towards the side. And then slowly push through the heels and come back up. Feel the tightness that you felt if it didn't feel comfortable, because after the class we'll see a big difference. Keep your feet in the same plane of motion. But this time I want you to tilt the tailbone all the way back and keep a slight bend in the knees, as then the bar or the pole goes just over the shins, and then you come back up. So make sure your toes are facing out to the side, the same position as your sumo squat, but this time you are going into the deadlift, so it's a hinge pattern or a hinge movement. Look at where my body is. All the movement is coming from the hip joint, and my back is nice and straight. And then come back up. And notice any tightness in the groin and the hamstrings with that movement. Now, we'll get into our core. So lying on your back, making sure your lower back is pushing down into the ground, and then I want you to tilt so that you get an arch in your back and you can put your hand underneath here. But keep pulling your ribs down towards your hips, and then place the lower back down onto the ground, and then tilt. So we're just getting some tilts and tucks so we know where the pelvis is. It's really important for the sumo squat and deadlift is to move the pelvis and know where the anterior tilt is and where the posterior pelvic tilt is. So keep moving here, pushing the lower back down onto the ground, then lifting and tilting it off of the ground, but keeping your sacrum pushing into the ground. Make sure your hands are on your ribs so that you can feel that they're not flaring out, but pulling down as you do this movement. So all the movement is coming from the hips and the lower back, not from your thoracic spine. Keep moving here, just to warm up into the pelvis. 5 more. Ribs down and engaged, shoulders back on the floor, belly button to spine. It should be difficult if your core is engaged. Make sure your core is active as well as moving through the lower back and pelvis. 2 more. Last one. And then keep that tilt So this is the tilt with your hand behind your back. You've got enough space behind the back. The ribs are pulling down towards your hips. Keep that tilt. Keep your belly button pulling into the spine, hands out into a T position, and then see if you can lift your legs here. If not, just lift one at a time. And we're having this tilt as we do this movement now. Very different to what we normally do. Normally we have the lower back on the ground. This time we have it with the sacrum pushing down into the ground. And move the legs, alternate the legs. Keep your belly button pulling into the spine and the ribs down towards the hips. Make sure there's space between your lower back and the mat. So your lower back is not touching the floor this time. 3 more. 2 and 1. Slowly take both legs down, push the lower back into the ground, and do the same movement. So coming into the dead bug, moving the legs, alternating and keeping the angle at the knee at 90 degrees. Control through the core and make sure there's no clicking in the hips. So if there is, control the core that little bit more. 5 more. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hug the knees into the chest. And now we go a little bit deeper. So if it's too much for you, you can carry on with these ones. And if not, then we move on to this. So arms out into a T position. Tilt the tailbone so that your sacrum is pushing into the ground and your hand can feel behind your back, so there's space there. And you're going to bring both legs up at the same time and then out to the side. Really open up the legs here and then bring them back together, knees to touch, and take it out. Knees to touch and take it out. Keep your core active, keep your sacrum pushing down into the ground. Keep going. Knees out to the side, both of them at the same angle. Don't let one drop more than the other. If it wants to drop or has more mobility, make sure that both sides are the same. So you have to bring that one back. 5 more here. Bring the knees to touch. Open up. 4 more. 3. Keep your core active, ribs engaged, sacrum pushing down into the ground, and hold behind the back. 2 more. Squeeze the knees back together. And last one. Squeeze. Take the feet down, and then push the lower back down into the ground. Lift the legs up, same movement, opening up and bringing it back. Keeping your ribs engaged to the floor, the back is nice and straight, and you're opening up the knees nice and wide and bringing it back. Make sure the knees are falling out at the same angle and one isn't falling out more than the other. Squeeze as you lift. 5 more. Squeeze. 4 more. Squeeze. 3. Ribs engaged, lower back down. 2. And 1. Hug the knees in and then come up onto your mat. We're going to start with the class. So grab your pillow and place it underneath your left knee. And then take your right foot out to the side. Your knee and your foot are in the same plane of motion, and the outside of your foot is pushing down onto the ground so that you create an arch on the inside of the foot. Keep your hips facing forward and not one higher than the other. So you've got to drop that hip a little bit lower. Make sure your hands are on the 2 bones here and facing forwards. From this position, then take your hand to your hip crease. And I want you to push into your hip crease so that you're pushing your joint down towards the opposite knee. So the angle of motion is from here and to your left knee. And then push down and pulse it. So we're opening up into the joint here, but also into the adductor. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Then I want you just to move and hinge at this point. A lot of people will move from their waist, but I want you to move from the hip joint. So make sure you can see yourself or have someone to show you that you're not moving directly from the hip. So we want to get from the hip instead of from the waist there. Keeping the hips at the same level, and then you'll feel a deeper stretch through the groin here. 5, 4, 3, 2, core engaged, and 1. Now lift the toes up towards the sky. We're coming more into the hamstring part of your groin. The toes are up towards the sky. Your hips are still facing forwards. It's a difficult movement, so you might feel like your hips move with the foot, but I want you to try and keep your core engaged and move the foot separately. And in this position, again, we're hinging at your hip crease, not at your waist. And pushing the joint down towards the floor. Pushing your heel down into the ground. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Come back to the first one. So dropping the foot down to the floor, turning it out so that the weight is on the outside of the foot and creating an arch on the inside of your foot. And then in this position, I want you to push the foot down into the ground as much as you can, and then relax and try and move again from this hip crease. And then come back up, push the foot into the ground. Make sure you're feeling that activity all the way through the groin, and then relax and stretch through here. 3 more. Push the foot into the ground and relax and open up. 2 more. Push. Really feel active in the groin. Even feel this leg being active. Squeeze the glutes and then relax and open up. Last one. Push the foot. Core engaged, hips facing forward, and then go to the side and up. Now, taking the foot up. And the same thing, now you're pushing the heel down into the ground so you can have a slight bend in the knee. Not a big bend, just a slight micro bend, pushing the heel down into the ground, and you'll feel that activity into your adductor magnus. So push the heel down into the ground, hips are still facing forwards, and then relax and hinge. Push the heel down, relax, hinge. 3 more, push the heel, relax and hinge. 2 more, push, relax and hinge. Last one, keep your core engaged, hips facing forward, heel down into the ground, push, 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 relax, and then get that hinge movement. Slowly place the foot back down, a lot of stretching through that groin, and now we're going to move into the other side. You might even feel it in your knee, but that's an important note because the adductor muscles go from the groin all the way and attach onto the inside of the knee. Again, get your setup right. So you're going to have your left leg out, right knee on the mat, your hip and knee are in the same line, and your foot and knee are in the same line here. Now, make sure that your hips are active, so you're keeping your core engaged and the hips are on the same plane of motion, not lifted up here. So drop the hip down. If you don't have good range of motion, it's okay, you're just going to have to keep trying and keeping the core active to get that as close as possible. Now, create the arch in your foot. Make sure the weight is on the outside of the foot. Hands onto your hip crease, and you're just going to push into the hip crease to mobilize through the joint. And remember, the movement is going from the hip all the way to the opposite knee. So you're pushing down in that direction. Five more. Push. Really get lots of activity. Use your arm strength to push the joint back and down. 2 and 1. Hold it here, and then you're just going to try and move and hinge at the hip crease. Keep pushing your hand down into your hip joint to keep your hips level, and then move to the side. Make sure the foot is secure on the mat and the weight is all on the outside of the foot. Keep moving here, keep pushing down. 5 more. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Hold it here, and then lift all the way back up. Now you're going to take the foot up towards the sky, pushing it up and hinging again from the side. So from your hip joint and not from your waist. Make sure there are differences from side to side. Keep your foot up, keep your hips facing forwards, and hinge at the hip here. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Place the foot down nice and controlled. Make sure your knee is not dropping. There's a straight line from the hip all the way to the foot. Not that your knee is dropping and your foot is lifting. We don't want that at all. It's not good for the knee. All right, then we're back to the starting position. Make sure your hips are nice and secure. One hip is down. Make sure they're both on the same level and pushing the hips forward. Now from here, I want you to push your foot into the ground. Push, 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 and relax. Hinge at the hip joint here. And again, push the foot into the ground. It's a difficult motion. Make sure your whole leg is strong. Squeeze both glutes, and then relax and move and hinge at this side. And again, 3 more. Push the foot into the ground and relax, hinge. Push, relax, and hinge. Last one, push as much as you can, really nice and strong. Push, 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 squeeze the glutes, squeeze the groin, and then relax and hinge at that point. Lifting the toes up towards the sky. Make sure your hips aren't facing towards the foot. You have to move the hips back, but then still try to get the foot up towards the sky. And then from here, you're pushing your heel into the ground, having a micro bend into the knee, and then relax and hinge. Push the foot, hands onto the hip, hinge. 3 more, push foot, the heel down into the ground. It might hurt the heel, it's okay. It has to get some pressure onto the heel at this angle. And 2 more, push, 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 and hinge. Last one, really push hard, slight bend in the knee, hips facing forward, core engaged, ribs towards the hips, and then relax and hinge from there. And then come slowly down, bringing the foot down, and then bringing it back into center. Now you can get 2 cushions if you have, or if your knees are okay, you don't need the cushion at all, and you come down into a frog. So your knees are out nice and wide, and your feet are directly behind your knees. If you've done my classes, you've done this one before. And now I want you to take your elbows down onto the floor. You can have another cushion if you have, onto the floor here, and I want you to tilt the tailbone up towards the sky. Remember the tilt from the beginning of the class. And then you're going to tuck the tailbone in. So really creating a rounded lower back. And then tilt the tailbone up towards the sky. If it's too difficult to be on your elbows, then just take it up onto your hands. And make sure you're comfortable, make sure the knees are not too painful, but it is going to be a little bit of discomfort. Keep moving, tilt the tailbone, even if it's like 1 millimeter of movement, it's okay, because that's what's going to start getting you the full movement. Keep tilting, and then tucking in the tailbone. And tilt, and tuck in. Tilt, and tuck. 3 more, tilt. Tilt as much as you can, really create that arch in the lower back, and tuck in the tailbone. Tilt, really get active, and tuck. Last one, tilt, and tuck. You can come out of this position for a little bit if you want, or you can just stay here, holding this position for a little bit before we go into our PNF techniques. You can move from side to side if it gets a little bit painful. And then if you've taken a rest, slowly get back into your frog position. And then we're going to go into our PNF. So take the hands up onto the floor. You're pushing your knees into the ground and squeezing through the groin. So you should feel these muscles active here. Squeeze, 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 squeeze as much as you can. And then relax and tilt the tailbone back. Try and drop the bum down towards the floor behind you. Come back up, squeeze the knees as much as you can into the floor. Create that activity through the groin, and then relax, and then take that bum back. Tilt the tailbone up towards the sky. Bring the bum forward and squeeze, push the knees into the ground, even push your feet into the ground to get more activity through the groin here. Then relax as much as you can, tilt the tailbone out and back towards the floor behind you. This is going to help with the sumo squat more than anything. Then, if you can, try come down onto your elbows and do the same thing, pushing the knees into the ground and relaxing and tilting. Remember, you don't have to go as deep as I do. You just have to feel the same thing. So squeeze the adductors, make sure you feel activity in the groin, and then tilt the tailbone out behind you and try and just move it 1 millimeter towards the back of the room. And 2 more. Squeeze and tilt. Last one, squeeze and tilt. Slowly come back up onto the hands and then move out of your frog position and onto your knees. Just give it a rest here because we're going back into that position again. Make sure if you want to have cushions underneath the knees just so that they're nice and secure and not painful. Now, same position, nice and wide with the knees and the feet directly behind the knees. And then you're going to come, so you just, now come into your sumo, your frog position again. And then take it a little bit closer than you had it before. Lift back up and then bring your heels together. And you're going to drop the bum down towards the floor. So you can use the pole here. Drop the bum down and then lift back up. So the knees are nice and wide. You're tilting the tailbone back, dropping the bum down to touch the heels, and then lift back up. Squeeze the glutes, but don't over tuck. Just squeeze the glutes with that tilt of your tailbone. Keep tilting, and take the bum down to touch. Keep your back nice and straight, and then lift back up. If you don't need the pole, then I want you to take it away and see if you can do it just with your body weight. And then lift back up. 5 more. Control it down. Even if you're not going far down and just getting that stretch that we need, that's okay. 3 more. Squeeze, but don't over tuck. Keep that tilt. Tilt as we go down and lift. 2 more. Tilt down and lift. Last one. Tilt as you go down and lift back up and slowly come out of that position. Hopefully your knees aren't so sensitive, otherwise they'll feel a little bit of pain, especially on the inside from all that groin release. Now, I want you to come up into your standing position. Take the pole and you're going to take it behind your back, like a back squat. Squeeze your shoulder blades together and take it quite low. And then from this position, take the legs out nice and wide. So heel toe them out as far as you can. Toes facing forwards. And then you're going to bend into your left knee and drop the body as low as you can. Even if you're just dropping to here, I want to get that control through this movement. Keeping the chest lifted, that's why the pole is here. And then taking it to the other side. So remember, we just tilt the tailbone back and then we drop directly down and lift back up. It's very difficult. Tilt the tailbone back, bend into the knee and slowly drop down. Last one, just getting this technique. Tilt the tailbone back, bend into the knee, drop directly down, come back up. And now we come to the left side. So tilt the tailbone back, drop into that knee, hold it here. And now I want you to squeeze your right foot into the ground as much as you can to get that adductor nice and active. Keep your core engaged and your hips facing forward. And then push up. And then again, go to the other side. Activate into your left leg. Make sure your foot is active on the outside of the foot. Really push the foot down into the ground to feel the adductor stretch, but keep your core engaged and your hips at the same level. And push back up. 2 more. Come down. Activate into the outside of the foot to get that deep activation through your groin. Keep your hips at the same level. Push back up. And to the other side. Activate into the outside of the foot, push the foot down into the ground, keep the chest lifted, and then come all the way back up. Now take the pole away, keeping the foot in the same direction, and we're going to go a little bit deeper. So if you do need the pole, this time you can have it here in front of you so that you can drop down nice and deep. So we'll do that. Getting nice and deep into the hip joint here, and then you can move across to the other side. Dropping down. It doesn't matter where your chest is, it's more about the hip joint here. And again to the other side. 4 more. 3. Keep active through the legs. 2. And 1. Remember, if you're not going as deep, that's okay. If you're going deeper, that's even better. And then come all the way back up. You can move the pole to the side. Take your hands to the floor. You can move your feet a little bit in and drop all the way into that left leg. Hold it here and then lift the toes of the right leg up to the sky. Push the heel down into the ground and then relax it. Remember, micro bend in the knee. Push the heel down and relax. Push and relax. 2 more. Push, relax. Last one. Push, 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 and relax. Place the foot down nice and secure. Then move your hands all the way to the opposite side. Get deep into this leg. Make sure your heel is on the ground and you lift the heel or the toes up to the sky. Push the heel down into the ground and relax. Get deeper. Push the heel down and relax. Push and relax. Push and relax. Last one. Push down nice and deep into the heel and relax. Slowly come back up all the way into your standing position and have the pole behind your back again into that back squat position. And then you're going to have your feet underneath, directly underneath your hips. Move the foot, one foot out to the side, and then angle your feet out to face the other side. Make sure the angle of both feet are the same and they're not pointing one too far out. From here, we're going to tilt the tailbone back and come into your deadlift. So straight knees. Hold it in this position and keep your back nice and straight. So if I show you from this angle, my ribs are engaged, my back is straight, and there's only a micro bend in my knees. So it's not overly straight and it's not bent. We're having a micro bend in the knees. Pull the ribs in. And then from there, we're going to drop the bum down but lift the chest. So get that transition right where we lift the chest so the chest doesn't go past the knees. And then we come back into that deadlift position. Keep your ribs pulled down and then lift back up. Keep squeezing your shoulder blades together. And drop forward. Tilt the tailbone out towards the back of the room. Keep active into your heels. Squeeze your glutes here. Lift the chest so that your chest is not going past your knees. And then come back into your deadlift, pushing the bum out and trying to straighten the knees, but not too much. Just a micro bend in the knees and lift all the way back up. 3 more. Tilt the tailbone back. Keep the core engaged. Drop the body nice and low. Then bend through the knees, lift the chest up. And push the bum back and lift all the way back up. Last one. Core engaged. Tilt the tailbone up towards the sky. Nice straight back. Keep the core active in this position. Drop the bum down, lift the chest up. Push into the heels. Come back and then lift all the way back up. Now you're going to change the angle of the pole. Right hand on top, left hand behind your back. And I want you to keep your lower hand on your sacrum, that triangle bone at the bottom of your spine, and then the other hand on your head, so that the whole spine is nicely engaged here. Now we're going to tilt the tailbone out and make sure there's no space between the pole and the spine. So I don't want it arched too much. I don't want the head looking up. I need the straight pole or the straight line of motion. So you're dropping and tilting your tailbone. So we don't want this rounded here. We want this tailbone tilted out. So just go as far as you can go, even if it's just to here and then you feel like you start rounding, just keep going to there and then you'll notice you can go deeper with each one. So keep going, keep controlled with the movement, keep tilting the tailbone up towards the sky and go as deep as you can, but making sure that you're keeping that tilt at that sacrum. So your hand that is on the sacrum needs to stay there and lift back up. Keep going. We're doing a lot in this one. And then you'll start noticing side-to-side differences. As you tilt your tailbone, you might feel one hamstring tighter than the other. And this is going to release the hamstrings and the groin. Make sure your body is going down through the middle, through the center, and you're not leaning only to one side. 5 more. 4, tilt tailbone. Even if you're just going a little bit, that's okay. If you're going more, great. 3 more. 2 and 1. Now coming into the sumo squat, so keeping the feet in the same position, toes facing out to the side, tilt the tailbone back, and then you bend into the knees and drop your bum all the way down. If you want to make the pole longer, that's okay. And then lift up. And come down. And lift. Keep the body upright. Tilt the tailbone so that the pole and the sacrum are attached in one line. Make sure you're coming down through both hips and not through one only. 5 more. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now we're going to add them together. So tilt the tailbone out, come into the deadlift. Then you're going to drop the knees, bend the knees, and lift the chest. Straighten the knees, keep the back straight, tilt the tailbone, lift back up. 4 more. Drop down. Come down into your squat, bending through the knees, lifting the chest, and then dropping forward, straightening the legs, and coming all the way back up. 3 more. Tilt. Drop the bum down. Lift the bum back up, straighten the knees, and lift. Last one. Take the bum back. Drop. And then come back up. And all the way up. Now, you can come into our post-assessment. So, taking the bar behind the back, feet underneath the hips, take 1 step out, angle the feet out, tilt the tailbone back, squeeze shoulder blades together, and then drop all the way down. And notice the difference after mobilizing through here. For me, I can go a lot deeper, hopefully for you too. Keep the chest lifted in this position, and then come all the way back up. Now, taking it to your sumo deadlift, so bring your hands down, keep the feet in the same position. You're going to tilt the tailbone out towards the back of the room and take the pole down past your shins, keeping your back nice and straight. And make sure you can feel with this micro bend in the knee, not too much of a bend, micro bend of the knee, a difference. So your eye could come about to here, and now I can come down to here. So that's a lot more engagement of more muscles and more muscle fibers. So I hope you enjoyed the class, and we're just going to end off with a cool down. So lie down on your back and grab your band. You can have the pillow underneath your head, and take the band around your foot, and then slowly take your right hand out to the side and left foot all the way out. Keep a nice straight knee and keep your core engaged, pushing your your right heel down into the ground. And then bring the leg all the way up and all the way over. Feeling the stretch now on the opposite muscle that we've been activating the whole time. So keep your right foot pointing up towards the sky. Don't let it drop Keep the right foot pushing up so that you get a deeper stretch through the right glute muscle, the left glute. And then switch sides, taking your right leg out, keeping your left heel pushing down into the ground and opening up into your adductors here. Keep your core active, so don't go too far, but go as far as you can where you feel a stretch and you feel your core is active and your hips are active. And then bring the foot all the way back up and over. So left heel or foot is pushing up into the sky, straight, and then you try and take this leg over and feel a stretch or a nice deep sensation through the hip on the right, even going down the side of the leg and into the foot. And then take the band away, bring the right knee into the chest and twist all the way over. You can relax your left leg. It can drop to the side this time. And then we'll switch sides, so bringing the left knee in and then taking it all the way to the opposite side. Dropping the right foot out to the side. And then you can come all the way back up. Well done for completing the class, and I will see you for class 3 next week.